It was past midnight when Tom Weaver realized he hadn't seen another car for almost an hour. He'd been driving east through Nevada since sunset, hauling a half-empty trailer of machine parts bound for Denver. The desert highway stretched endlessly. Ahead, a pale strip of asphalt cutting through nothing. The GPS on his dash showed a single line of road with no turns for miles. Somewhere around mile marker 143, the signal flickered and froze. He tapped the screen. Nothing. Fine, he thought. He knew the route by heart anyway. He turned down the radio, only static now, and rolled the window open. The night air was cold, dry, silent. His headlights picked out small clouds of dust swirling over the road, then vanishing into the dark. A few minutes later, a green sign flashed past on the right. Mile 145. Tom glanced at the odometer out of habit, then looked up again. Nothing but the black desert and the pale ribbon of highway ahead. Then, out of the dark, a gas station appeared. A small, old-fashioned one, with a single flickering neon sign that read, "Gas, food, open 24 hours." He didn't remember seeing it before, but out here, that didn't mean much. There were dozens of forgotten stations scattered along the interstate. He pulled in, tires crunching on gravel. The place looked abandoned. One dusty pump, a vending machine, and a diner with lights on inside. When he stepped in, a bell above the door chimed. The air smelled of stale coffee and something sweet. Maybe old pie. Behind the counter sat a woman, maybe 40, in a faded uniform. She smiled faintly. "Coffee?" "Yeah. Black." She poured without asking and slid the mug toward him. The liquid was lukewarm, but he didn't care. "Been a slow night?" he asked. "Every night's slow out here," she said, not looking up. "You heading east?" He nodded. "Stay on 50 for another 60 miles. Don't stop till dawn." Tom frowned. "What's out there?" "Nothing," she said. "That's the problem." He left a few bills on the counter and stepped back into the cold. The desert was silent again, not even wind. When he started the engine, the radio crackled to life for a second, catching part of a voice. "Still missing. Last seen near mile 145. Then static swallowed it again. He drove on. For a while the road felt normal. The hum of the tires, the rhythmic flash of the center lines. But then, 20 minutes later, his headlights picked up something familiar. A green sign. Mile 145. He blinked. That couldn't be right. He'd been driving straight east. No turns, no exits. He checked the odometer. He'd traveled 23 miles. Maybe a duplicate sign. It happened sometimes, but then the glow of lights appeared ahead. The same gas station. Same sign, same flickering, open 24 hours. Same single pump. Tom slowed, staring. The woman's car, a dusty blue sedan parked beside the diner, was there again. He felt a chill crawl down his back. Maybe he'd turned around somehow. But no, the mountains were still on his right, same direction as before. He passed the station this time without stopping. In his mirror, the neon lights flickered, then went out all at once. Another half hour, same road, empty desert, then, once again, mile 145. He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Sweat ran down his neck. This was impossible. The GPS still showed nothing, frozen on the same image, a single blank highway. He slowed the truck to a crawl and looked around. The road signs, the gravel shoulder, even the shape of the distant hills, all identical. He could almost swear he saw his own tire tracks faintly in the dust. When the diner lights came into view for the third time, he felt something break inside him. He pulled in, hard, and got out. The air was colder now, unnaturally so. The woman was behind the counter again, same as before, same calm smile. "You're back early," she said. Tom's voice shook. "What is this place?" She looked at him for a long moment, then said quietly, "You missed the turn." "What turn? There's nothing out there." "There was," she said. "You just didn't see it." He stared at her. "How do I get out?" She poured another cup of coffee. "Keep driving, but don't look in the mirrors." Before he could ask more, the lights flickered. Somewhere outside, a single car engine started, though he hadn't seen anyone else pull in. When he stepped back outside, his own truck headlights were still on. But the passenger door was open. Tom froze. The truck's passenger door was open, though he was sure he had closed it when he left the diner the first time. The cab light glowed weakly in the darkness. He scanned the shadows, the gravel lot, the edges of the desert where blackness swallowed everything. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. He walked slowly to the truck, checking behind the trailer, under the chassis. Empty. He slammed the door shut, locked both sides, and climbed in behind the wheel. His hands shook as he gripped it. He told himself, "You're tired. You're seeing patterns because your brain is half asleep." He'd finish the coffee, drive straight through until dawn, and everything would make sense again. Tom shifted into gear. The diner's neon sign flickered once more behind him, then died completely. As if someone had pulled the plug the second he left, the desert swallowed the truck's headlights. The silence grew thicker. He forced himself not to look at the mirrors, just like she'd said, but curiosity has teeth. After a few miles, he cracked. A quick glance, just to reassure himself. There, in the side mirror, the passenger door was open again. His heart lurched. He slammed the brakes. The truck skidded, gravel spraying. He whipped around to look directly. The door was shut. Mirror, open. Reality, closed. He slammed his fist on the glass. Enough! He drove faster. Mile marker 146 should have appeared by now. He should have been past this stretch long ago. Then, green sign ahead. Mile 145. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." A truck trailer, same model as his, same company, passed on the other side of the divided highway. Flashes of reflective tape catching his lights. He recognized the dent on the rear door. It was his truck. He glimpsed the other driver for a moment. Only when their cabs aligned. It was him. Same jacket. Same hat. Staring straight ahead. Then the other truck faded into the dark behind him. Tom's breath shook. He couldn't tell if his heart was racing or if he'd stopped feeling it. He checked the time. 2:47 a.m. He'd left the diner at 1:10. Time was moving. He was moving. But the world wasn't. He reached under the seat, pulled out his phone. No signal. Battery at 32%. The wallpaper, a photo of his daughter, flickered and distorted for a split second. He jammed it back in his pocket, trying to think. He needed to stop, to sleep, to reset his brain. But stopping felt like death. Lights ahead. The diner. Again. He didn't pull in this time. He slowed just enough to look. The blue sedan was still parked there, but now, the driver's side door stood open. Something white fluttered from the window, caught in the wind. A receipt slip. On it, scrawled in marker, "Check the passenger seat." The paper blew away into the road behind him. His throat tightened. Slowly, he forced himself to look right. On the passenger seat, beside him, a folded jacket rested neatly. Not his. Small. Familiar denim, a child's jacket. He touched it with shaking fingers. Inside the collar, stitched neatly. Weaver. Emma age. 6, his daughter's jacket. But Emma was gone. A year ago. Car accident. He'd been driving. His vision blurred. Tears. Memory. Pain. His knuckles whitened on the wheel. "I can't do this," he gasped. He pressed harder on the gas. The truck roared. He would break the loop by force. 85. 95. The road became a tunnel of black. The world narrowed to speed and fear, but the diner lights appeared again. Impossibly close, and Tom swerved to avoid hitting the pump. The truck jackknifed, trailer swinging. Metal screeched against asphalt. He fought the wheel, and lost. The truck slammed sideways, tipping. Glass shattered. Everything turned. Silence. Tom woke to the stinging smell of fuel. The cab was on its side. The windshield cracked like a spiderweb. He tasted blood. Above him, or what used to be above him, the passenger door hung wide open. No sign of the jacket. Voices drifted outside. Shoes crunching gravel. Flashlight beams cut through the dark. Over here. Driver's alive. Sir, can you hear me? Red and blue lights. Paramedics. State police. The radio scanner crackled. Repeat. Accident reported at mile 145. Strong hands pulled him from the wreckage. Someone draped a blanket over his shoulders. A police officer knelt in front of him. You're lucky, the officer said. A trucker ahead saw you lose control and called it in. Tom stared at him, shaking uncontrollably. What? What mile is this? The officer blinked. Mile 145. But don't worry. You won't be staying here long. Tom's head jerked up. The officer's face softened. You'll be transferred to a hospital. And after that? He hesitated. There's a recovery program for drivers who've been through trauma like yours. It wasn't your fault. The accident with your little girl. Nobody could have... Tom flinched, as if stabbed. He lowered his eyes. The officer stood. We'll take you home, son. Behind them, the gas station lights flickered back to life. The diner door hung open. Inside, a single cup of coffee steamed on the counter, untouched. A child's voice, soft as a memory, seemed to brush his ear. Time to go, Daddy. The paramedics lifted him onto a stretcher. As they closed, the ambulance doors, Tom whispered. I didn't see the turn. And the world finally started moving forward again. The bus left Reno at 11:45 p.m. A gray coach with flickering cabin lights, half full of people too tired to talk. The kind of ride where everyone sinks into their seat, wraps themselves in silence, and stares out into the dark. Mark Hall, 37, window seat near the middle. He was heading east to Salt Lake City, a 12-hour ride through desert and mountain passes. His phone had no signal. The heater hummed like static. At the front, the driver, an older man in a ball cap, adjusted the radio, which only caught faint AM stations. Somewhere behind him, a woman coughed softly. A few rows back, a teenager snored into his hoodie. It was the sort of quiet where your own breathing starts to sound too loud. Mark leaned his head against the glass, watching the reflection of the bus interior merge with the empty road outside. The yellow lines rolled endlessly beneath them. Then, at a rest stop around 1:10 a.m., the driver called out, 15 minutes, folks. Stretch your legs. People shuffled off into the cold, lighting cigarettes or walking to the vending machines. Mark stayed behind, half asleep. He closed his eyes, just for a minute. When he opened them again, the bus was already moving. He jerked upright. Hey, but no one reacted. The driver must have thought everyone was back on board. The bus lights dimmed as it re-entered the highway. Outside, the desert stretched infinite, gray and empty. Mark counted silently. 10, maybe 12 other passengers. Most dozing, some staring at their phones. Then he noticed a man he hadn't seen before. Second row from the front, aisle seat. Wearing a dark coat, hood up, face turned toward the window. Perfectly still. Had he been there before? Mark couldn't remember. Maybe he'd come back early while Mark was asleep. Still, something about him felt wrong. Too still. Like a shape pretending to be human. Hours passed. The driver announced another rest stop at 3:25 a.m. A lonely gas station in the middle of nowhere. Everyone filed out, stretching stiff legs. Mark stayed near the door watching. The hooded man didn't move. The driver frowned. Sir, we're stopped. No response. Let him sleep, someone muttered. The driver shrugged, stepped off for a smoke. Mark glanced back again. The man's posture hadn't changed, but the angle of his head had. Just slightly, as if he were listening. A shiver ran through him. When the driver climbed back on, the man was sitting upright, both hands on his knees. He hadn't moved a moment ago. Mark tried to catch the driver's eye, but the old man just muttered, "Everybody back? All right then," and shut the door. The bus rolled on. Around 4 a.m., fog began to gather. Thick, low, swallowing the headlights. The bus slowed. The passengers were mostly asleep now, except Mark. He leaned into the aisle, glancing at the hooded figure, still motionless. Then the driver spoke, half to himself. Strange. Should have passed the way station by now. Mark checked his phone. No signal, no GPS. He stared at the seat numbers overhead. He was in row 9. Across from him, an empty pair of seats. Ahead, 7 rows visible. 11 people total, counting the driver. But when he glanced at the ticket sheet on the dashboard during a bathroom stop earlier, he remembered. Only 10 passengers were booked. He counted again. 10, including him, plus the driver, and the man in the dark coat. That made 12. At 4:23, the driver called out suddenly, "Hey sir, you all right back there?" Mark looked up. The hooded man was standing in the aisle now, right in the middle of the bus, swaying slightly with the motion. His face was still hidden. "Sir, please take your seat," the driver said, glancing in the mirror. The man didn't move. A young woman near the back whispered, "What's he doing?" The man turned his head, slowly, and toward her voice. "Sir," the driver repeated. Firmer now, no response. Then, without a word, the man reached for the overhead bin, pulled down a duffel bag, and walked calmly toward the rear exit. Mark half rose, unsure whether to stop him. But the driver barked, "Sit down!" and hit the hazard lights. The bus lurched to a stop on the shoulder. The man opened the rear door, stepped out into the fog, and disappeared. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the driver muttered, "Damn hitchhikers," and started the engine again. Mark stared at the empty aisle, the door swinging slightly from the motion. He realized his hands were shaking. When they reached the next checkpoint, the driver stepped off to sign the log. Mark glanced up front, curious. The passenger manifest was still clipped to the dashboard. 10 names, seats assigned. None unclaimed, no one named passenger number 4. The bus rolled back onto the highway, tires hissing on wet asphalt. No one spoke for a long time. Mark sat rigid, staring at the rear door. It still rattled faintly from when the man had stepped out. He tried to replay the moment in his head. How the guy had moved, the sound of his shoes on the steps, the duffel bag swinging at his side. Everything about it was ordinary, and yet, no one remembered him being there before. When the driver came back, Mark said quietly, "You should probably report that." "The guy who left," the old man frowned. "What guy?" "The one in the coat. Passenger number 4. "There's no passenger number 4, the driver said. "We started this trip with 10, Mark stared at him. "You're kidding. Look, I've been driving this route 20 years. If someone got off early, I'd know." He gave a short laugh. "You probably nodded off. Happens all the time on the night run. People dream with their eyes open." But Mark knew he hadn't imagined it. The bag, the hood, the way the man turned toward that girl's voice. It was too vivid, too deliberate. An hour later, dawn began to bleed through the fog. Soft orange light spread over the desert hills. Most passengers were waking, stretching, yawning, checking phones for signal. The girl from the back, the one the man had looked at, caught Mark's eye and gave a nervous half-smile. "You saw him too, right?" she whispered. He nodded. Relief crossed her face. "I thought maybe I dreamed it." "What did you see exactly?" She frowned, thinking. "He had that old duffel, like army surplus or something." Didn't say a word. She hesitated. "My granddad used to take this route. He told me once he stopped riding after..." She stopped when the driver's voice crackled through the intercom. "Next stop, Eli. 40 minutes. Mark leaned back, trying to calm his breathing. 40 minutes. Just 40 more minutes. 15 minutes later, the bus slowed. The driver muttered something under his breath, tapping the fuel gauge. "Everything all right?" Mark called. "Gauge is acting up," the man replied. "We'll top off at the next station." Mark turned toward the window and froze. On the shoulder, through the thinning fog, stood a dark shape. A man, same coat, facing the road. The bus roared past and the shape vanished behind the dust. Mark twisted in his seat to look, but he was gone. "Did you see that?" he asked the girl. She shook her head. "See what?" The others were already drifting back into half-sleep. No one had noticed. By the time they reached Ely, the world was awake again. Sun up, gas station buzzing, people stretching. Mark stepped off the bus, heart still thudding. He walked around the lot, pretending to stretch, scanning the area. Nothing unusual. When he came back, the driver was smoking beside the hood, chatting with the station attendant. Mark hesitated, then said, "Hey, can I see that manifest again?" The driver sighed but handed it over. Mark's eyes scanned the list. 10 names, seat numbers 1 through 11. but seat 4 was crossed out. "What's this?" he asked. The driver looked over his shoulder. "That seat's been empty since Reno." "No, it wasn't." "It was," the driver said flatly. "It's always empty. Has been for a while." Mark frowned. "What do you mean, always?" The driver flicked his cigarette. "Look, we had an incident a couple years back. Passenger died on that route. Heart attack, middle of the night. Seat 4, he shrugged. "Company policies to leave it empty out of respect. Creeps some people out, but I don't make the rules." Mark's throat went dry. "What happened to him?" The driver looked away. "Guy was a vet, had a duffel bag with him. They said he was heading home." The world seemed to tilt. "Same kind of bag?" Mark asked quietly. "Yeah, maybe. Why?" Mark just shook his head and handed the clipboard back. The ride from Ely to Salt Lake was long and silent. The girl beside him had fallen asleep again. The rest of the passengers were quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like everyone's thinking the same thing, but no one dares say it. The empty seat up front, number 4, glowed faintly in the morning light. Mark found himself staring at it. Every bump of the road made the overhead light flicker, like it was trying to draw attention. Once, when the driver glanced into the rearview mirror, he caught Mark's eyes and gave a small, uneasy shake of his head. "Don't." But Mark couldn't help it. He leaned forward in his seat, just enough to see the aisle clearly, and for half a second, no longer, he thought he saw the duffel bag sitting neatly on the empty cushion. He blinked. It was gone. When the bus finally pulled into Salt Lake City, the passengers filed off one by one. Mark was the last. He paused at the door, glancing toward seat 4. Empty, of course. "Hey," he said quietly to the driver, "you ever wonder if maybe someone just never got where they were going?" The old man looked tired. "Son, this road's full of people who never got where they were going." He gave a faint smile. "Get some sleep." Mark nodded, stepped down onto the pavement, and stretched his stiff legs. Behind him, the bus door hissed shut. The engine growled. The driver pulled away from the terminal. As the taillights disappeared into the glare of morning traffic, Mark realized he could still see the reflection of the empty seat in the bus window. Seat number 4. Faint and flickering, like something that never really left. He turned away. The road beyond the station shimmered in the heat, and for just a heartbeat, in the corner of his eye, a man in a dark coat stood by the exit ramp, waiting for a ride. The rain had been falling for hours, the kind that blurs the windshield into moving glass. Evan Cole gripped the steering wheel tighter, squinting through the wipers as they struggled to keep up. Beside him, Claire sat with her phone raised, the faint blue glow reflecting off her tired face. "Signal's gone again," she muttered. "It's just blank." Evan nodded. "We'll pick it up once we're out of the mountains." They were heading back from a weekend in Tahoe, a last-minute road trip to forget the stress of the past few months. Claire's new job, Evan's layoff, the arguments that kept circling back to the same unsolved things. The road wound between cliffs and pine trees, narrow and slick. The clock on the dash read 11:42 p.m. They were supposed to reach Sacramento by 1. "Should be a tunnel up ahead," Claire said, checking the map she'd downloaded earlier. "It cuts through the ridge. Saves half an hour." Evan exhaled. "Good. I'm about done with these curves." Rain hammered the roof as they rounded another bend. The headlights caught a reflective sign. "Hartford Tunnel. 1 mile. Keep lights on. No stopping." "Never heard of it," Evan said. Claire shrugged. "It's probably old. Just stay in the middle lane." A minute later, they reached the entrance. A black mouth carved into the rock, rimmed with old concrete and a row of dim yellow lamps. Water streamed down its sides like tears. Evan slowed, letting the automatic headlights adjust. The noise of the rain faded the second they entered. Inside, it was only the hum of the tires and the steady drip of water echoing through the tunnel's length. They drove in silence. The tunnel curved gently, then straightened. The yellow lights flickered every 20 feet, a rhythm that made it easy to lose track of time. Claire turned down the radio. It had turned to static anyway. "How long is this thing?" she asked after a while. Evan checked the dashboard clock. "Feels like forever," she frowned. "The map said a mile. That's like a minute. Maybe we're going uphill." "Feels slower." He tried to smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. Another minute passed. Then 2. Then 5. Still, no sign of light ahead. The walls on either side were concrete, marked with black stains and occasional emergency doors. One had the number 27 painted on it. Then another, 27 again. Claire leaned forward. Did you see that? See what? That door number. It repeated. Evan glanced back in the mirror. Probably maintenance numbering. Maybe every segment's labeled. But she was right. A few minutes later, 27 again. He gripped the wheel harder. We're fine. It's just... Evan. What? Look. He followed her gaze to the speedometer. 55 miles per hour. They'd been driving at that pace for almost 10 minutes. A 1-mile tunnel. Something was off. He slowed the car. Maybe there's construction. Or an accident. Claire checked her phone again. Still no signal. It can't be that long. I'd have seen this place before if it was. Maybe it loops, he said. Half joking, but there was no laugh in his voice. Ahead, the tunnel bent slightly left. The same curve they'd taken a dozen times already. The same puddle of water. The same flickering light that seemed to buzz louder each time they passed it. Stop, Claire said suddenly. Stop the car. Evan hesitated. Claire, we're in the middle of a tunnel. Just stop! He hit the brakes, the tires squealing slightly against the damp surface. They sat in silence. Nothing moved. No other headlights. No sound of engines. Not even the hum of ventilation. Claire looked out the rear window. The tunnel behind them stretched into darkness. This doesn't make sense, she whispered. Evan reached for the glove compartment and pulled out the paper map they'd bought at a gas station earlier. The Hartford Tunnel wasn't on it. After a moment, he said, Okay, I'm turning around. Evan, no, it's fine. We'll just backtrack to the entrance. He shifted into reverse and started backing up slowly, checking the mirrors, but the light behind them didn't change. After 50 yards, he stopped again. There was nothing. No curve, no faint glow from the tunnel mouth, just more blackness stretching behind them. The yellow lights overhead buzzed faintly, then went out, all of them. The darkness was absolute. Claire's breathing quickened. Turn the headlights on full. They are. Evan. He flicked the switch off, then on again. The beam stayed dead. Something dripped onto the windshield. A single streak of water, slow, deliberate. Then another, he swallowed. We must have blown a fuse, Claire's voice cracked. Then why can I still hear the engine? He stared ahead, and then saw it. Far down the tunnel, maybe 100 yards ahead, a pair of headlights appeared. Dim, unmoving. Finally, he said. Another car. But they didn't move closer. They just waited. Claire whispered, Evan, maybe flash your brights. He tried. Nothing. The distant lights flickered. Once, like a heartbeat, then slowly began to move toward them. Okay, Evan said, more to himself than her. Good. Maybe they'll lead us out. But as the beams grew nearer, he noticed something strange. They were perfectly aligned with his own. Same height, same pattern, like looking into a mirror. The other headlights were coming closer now. Slow, steady, without sound. Evan leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. They're not moving fast, he muttered. Claire gripped the edge of her seat. Then why can't I hear them? He turned off the engine. The hum died instantly. Silence filled the car, heavy, complete. And still, those lights kept approaching. No engine noise. No tires on wet concrete. Just two white orbs cutting through the dark until they stopped maybe 20 feet away. Then, nothing. Maybe it's a reflection, Claire whispered. From what? From us. Evan's stomach twisted. He reached for the door handle. Don't, she said sharply. Don't you dare. I just want to see... Evan, please. Stay inside. He hesitated. Then a single car horn blared. One short honk, echoing down the tunnel. Both of them jumped. The lights in front of them shifted slightly, dipping as if a driver had leaned forward. Maybe they're trying to signal, Evan said, forcing calm. Like, asking if we're okay. Claire's voice trembled. Then why haven't they passed us? He didn't answer. He just stared, eyes fixed on the glow ahead. Minutes crawled by. Neither of them spoke. Finally, the lights began to move again, slowly backing away, shrinking into the dark. After a moment, the tunnel lights above flickered back on, one by one, stretching away like a golden spine into infinity. Evan exhaled shakily. Let's just go, Claire whispered. He started the engine. The headlights came back to life as if nothing had happened. They drove forward cautiously, following the relit path. For the first few minutes, it felt normal again. The yellow lights, the steady hum of tires, The faint smell of wet concrete. Then Claire spoke softly. "Evan, that's the third time we've passed that red sign." He frowned. "What sign?" "The one that says emergency exit 27. He glanced to the right. There it was again. Faded paint, peeling numbers. 27. The same, every time. He pressed harder on the gas. "It's the same section repeating. Maybe the tunnel loops. Maybe there's a bend we keep missing." She laughed, sharp and scared. "A tunnel doesn't loop, Evan." "Then what's your theory?" "I don't know." "Maybe we're tired. Maybe the lights." Her voice broke. "I just want to get out." He said nothing. He couldn't admit it, but he wanted the same. At 12:18 a.m., according to the dashboard clock, they saw something new. A service alcove, larger than the rest, with a metal door slightly ajar. A faint orange light leaked from inside. Evan slowed. "Should we—" "No," Claire snapped. He stopped anyway. The rain outside the tunnel was gone, replaced by a soft hiss of dripping water. He opened the door and stepped out before she could stop him. The air was damp, cold, and smelled of rust. He walked toward the alcove, shoes splashing in shallow puddles. The door read Maintenance Access 27, the same number again. He pushed it open a few inches. Inside, just a narrow corridor lit by a single bulb, concrete walls, pipes running overhead, and something else. A small wooden sign on the wall covered in dust. He wiped it clean with his sleeve. Hartford Tunnel. Length, 1.2 miles. Construction ended. 1979 closed. Permanently. 1983 even froze. Closed? He stepped back, looking around the tunnel. The fresh yellow lights, the clean asphalt. It didn't fit. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Not behind him, from inside the tunnel. Slow even, echoing closer. He turned. The car still idled where he'd left it, headlights cutting through the mist. Claire was sitting motionless in the passenger seat, hands gripping the dashboard. Behind her, in the rear seat, a faint silhouette shifted. For a heartbeat, Evan couldn't breathe. Then the car horn blared again, one short, sharp note, and the silhouette disappeared. He ran back, yanked open the door, nearly shouting, "Did you see that?" Claire's eyes were wide. "Who was that?" "I don't—" He stopped. The back seat was empty. Her voice cracked. "You left the door unlocked." He looked down at his trembling hands. "I didn't mean—" Then the radio hissed. A faint voice broke through static. "Mile marker 27. Road closed. Repeat. Hartford Tunnel closed for—" The sound died. Evan and Claire stared at each other. Neither dared to move. Finally, he whispered, "We're turning around." He spun the car in the narrow space and drove back the way they'd come. The tunnel seemed longer now. Endless rows of lights fading into the dark. After several minutes, the curve appeared. Then another. Then another. Still no exit, until a faint glow appeared ahead. White light. The tunnel mouth. They both exhaled at once, relief flooding in. Evan accelerated. "We made it." As they neared the exit, the radio crackled again. Just a fragment. "Accident reported. Couple found inside old tunnel." Claire frowned. "What did that—" The car burst into daylight. Blinding sunlight. Evan blinked, raising a hand to shield his eyes. The rain was gone, the sky sharp and blue. But the road was empty. No signs. No other cars. Behind them the tunnel mouth was gone, just solid rock. They pulled over a mile later, shaking. Claire got out, breathing hard, staring back at the cliffs. "There's nothing there." Evan said nothing. He checked the odometer. They'd driven exactly 1.2 miles. He closed his eyes, hands still trembling on the steering wheel. Claire whispered, "Let's just go home." He nodded, started the car, and merged back onto the road. For a long time, neither spoke. Then she said softly, almost to herself, "Do you think we actually came out the same way we went in?" He didn't answer. He just stared at the empty highway ahead. And, for a brief moment, thought he saw his own headlights glowing faintly in the mirror behind him.